Hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on how to avoid LinkedIn account restrictions. Today here with you, as always, our beloved host, Giles Garnett, the Head of Professional Services, and on the live chat is Gintare Kuzmanskaite, which is me, the Head of Customer Service. And at the end of the webinar, we will have Q&A with Giles. Thank you for joining us today, and let's start our webinar.
Cool, thank you. And hello, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to you, wherever you may be in the world. And thank you for once again for joining us in the latest of our series of Dux-Soup webinars. As Jin just introduced me, my name is Giles, and I'm Head of Professional Services here at Dux-Soup. And you've just heard from Jin, who's Head of Customer Support. And as you may or may not be aware, I've been presenting these webinars for around 3 years now. So today's webinar, we're going to focus on the limits that LinkedIn have in place and how you can maximize your lead generation activities around these limits. This information in today's webinar is applicable to all Dux-Soup users and indeed all LinkedIn users. So hopefully there's useful information in here for everyone. While I'm presenting and talking, please raise any questions you have via the questions box. It's not the chat box, it's the question box. I've always made that mistake. Yeah, and Jin will do her best to answer those that are applicable. Any that are appropriate, I will try to answer as well at the end of the webinar, and try to keep your questions on topic, please. As always, the webinar today is being recorded and will be made available to you in the coming hours if you registered, and via our website and YouTube channel later on today or maybe tomorrow. Anybody who's new to Dux-Soup, because it's the sort of topic we often get new viewers for. What is Dux-Soup? Just in case anybody doesn't know, it's a Chrome extension which helps you to automate your lead generation activities in LinkedIn, working by mimicking human behavior on the platform, and gives you the possibility to harness the power of LinkedIn by automating actions such as auto visiting profiles, sending connection requests, sending in mails, endorsing skills. Really important here, to keep your linked accounts safe, Dux-Soup mimics human behavior. And that is basically the ethos upon which Dux-Soup is built. So what's the situation regarding LinkedIn limits, and what do they mean to you? So around 20 months ago, I think it was, we saw LinkedIn implement a weekly invitation limit, which basically capped the number of invites or connection requests you could send during the course of a week, with the counter basically effectively being reset on a Sunday night or a Monday morning. Now, we don't know what the number is for any user, but what we do know is that it changes depending upon what you do and how you use the LinkedIn platform. And one thing I must point out now, and it's really important, you know, I know that the topic of the webinar is to how to avoid restrictions, etc., etc. There is no magic bullet for getting around the LinkedIn limits. They are what they are, and we have to learn to work within those boundaries, whilst doing what we can with all the other options that we have available to us on the LinkedIn platform. And what we do know is that the more you do on LinkedIn, the more you can do. And it takes time to build up effectively your numbers. So you start all of your activities slowly, and then you slowly build up over time. And it's one of those things that you can't go into it like a bull in a china shop. You can't go in and try and send hundreds of connection requests straight off the bat, because you'll end up with the pop-up saying you're out of invitations and you won't be able to do anything, or you'll be restricted into what you can do. So it's really important to understand that straight off, that there is no magic bullet if you're using Dux-Soup with LinkedIn. Because of the way the Dux-Soup is designed, we are respectful of LinkedIn's, what they call their fair usage limits. And we don't use any of the unauthorized API backdoor methodologies that you sometimes see. So bearing all of that in mind, how do we proceed? Or maybe even what impacts our limits? Well, what we'll do is we'll just go back here a second. One of the things that we have to do is we have to start slowly, and I can't reiterate it. Yeah, we go in 100 a day, then we're going to get banned. You build up over time. So start with 25 invites per day and see how it goes. Some people get capped out at maybe 100 to 150 invites per week, but a lot of users are able to go a lot higher. So if you have no issues after the first week or so, go to 30, etc., etc. And while you're doing this, monitor how successful your outreach is. How many people are accepting? What is your conversion rate, etc., etc. What impacts your limits? Well, these are the things that we know that impact how much you can do. How many first degree connections do you have? The bigger the network you have, the more you can do. Do you have a paid account or a free LinkedIn account? You will always be able to do more if you're parting with cold hard cash and paying LinkedIn money. How many people are accepting your requests? Which then links to the next one here on the line, on the slide here. How many outstanding invites do you have and how quickly are they growing? Very few acceptances will result in an outstanding list growing quickly, so they are connected, if you like. Have you been flagged as unknown or spam before? You know, if you're just cold calling and sending messages out or sending connection requests out and people are saying, I don't know this person, too many of those, you will get some sort of a limitation. And then sudden changes in behavior, which may indicate that you might be using automation or something. You've gone from doing 0 connection requests to doing 100 a day, for example. There are a few other things as well, which aren't on this slide. How active are you on LinkedIn? Do you post? Do you comment? Do you share? And all of these activities that you're doing on LinkedIn impact what's called your social selling index, or your SSI. And that gives you an indication of whether you're a good LinkedIn citizen or not, and basically adds to your credibility. It also means that you appear further up on a search result if you've got a good SSI. So all of these things impact how much you can do. And there is no fast track. The only thing you can do is start doing stuff and then build up over time. It does take time. So what should you do? You start slowly, you build up over time. You monitor when that pop-up, the pop-up, we go back 2 slides, this pop over here on the right-hand side, you've reached the weekly invitation limit. If you're out of your invites, then that will pop up. So Dux-Soup monitors for that and will then snooze your invites if that pops up, and you can define how many days that snoozes for. So all of these things help you to manage, and Dux-Soup will help you to manage that situation as well. Monitor when the pop-up appears, measure your performance, learn and refine, and keep on measuring. It's really important that you continue to measure. You know, you make a change, is that to your target group or is that into your messaging? Make a change, see what impact it has. So if you get the pop-up and you have invites, what else can you do? And this is where you can really start to utilize the power of Dux-Soup with LinkedIn to make sure that you're not losing time in your lead generation activities. So other lead generation activities you can use in LinkedIn. You can visit profiles. Ensure that you've got your account set to visible so that people know you visited them, and just get visiting. I've seen many Dux-Soup users grow their network massively and organically using just this method. Visiting people who you want to be connected with, and make sure your profile is up to date with relevant information in your headline. It's got to be relevant to your audience. The sorts of groups that work really well when you're trying to auto-visit profiles. I mean, you can visit hundreds of profiles. If you've got, for example, Sales Navigator, you're comfortable in visiting 500 or so profiles a day. With a free account, it is less than that, but it's still an activity. It's a lead generation activity. So group members, if you're a member of a group, if you've got certain interest groups that you're targeting, auto visit members of those groups. People who've reacted to a post, if it's a pertinent post to your interest, visit those people. They'll all get a little tap on the shoulder that you visited them. And look at your network and see who those people are connected to. So effectively, you know, piggyback onto your network members. Find a key person, someone who's got an interesting role perhaps within your network. Look who they're connected to and visit those people, and that will help you to really grow your network. A lot of people monitor who has been visiting their profile and will hopefully visit you back, and that gives you then more organic growth of your network. First degree messaging. This is massively underused. We did this as a webinar topic separately about a month ago, I think now. I might be wrong with that, sorry. So use Dux-Soup to reach out to your existing first degree network. It's a massively underused resource. A lot of people I speak to, they've got 5, 6, 10,000 first degree connections and they don't do anything with it. often a dormant population. So make sure you're making use of that functionality. First degree messaging in Dux-Soup Pro, or even building campaigns for your first degree network if you've got Dux-Soup Turbo. InMails. If you've got a premium account, as in Sales Navigator or Recruiter in LinkedIn, make use of your InMails. And again, we covered this, I think it was about the end of May, where we had some tricks as to how to maximize your InMail activity in LinkedIn using Dux-Soup and using what we call the free credits. They're the open profile actions. You can therefore, you're out of invites, but you can still send InMails. A basic LinkedIn 101, post and share. If you're posting, if you're sharing information, if you're sharing your articles and information from your organization or whatever it may be, or stuff that's relevant, it will just increase your credibility. It will boost your SSI. And have a clear, repeatable process. Don't do it randomly. Have control over it, because if it's not clear and repeatable, you can never measure it. You can never measure whether you're doing a successful activity or whether you're just wasting your time keeping yourself busy. So these are all things to think about on top of doing your connection requests. Of course, most people immediately think, LinkedIn, got to grow my network, got to send connection requests. No, you don't. You can also do all of this here that you see on the screen now. So what I'm going to do is just dip into Dux-Soup and LinkedIn very briefly and walk through how we can control our activities, the speed of the robot, how many invites we can send, how to withdraw invites, because you have the ability to do that automatically. Very quickly, we'll touch on how to visit only. We'll go to a list and say, right, let's just go and visit those profiles. They'll all get a notification that I visited them. And we'll just touch on sending InMails very briefly as well. Do remember to get your questions in as well while I'm doing this. So it's all hopefully seamless. Have I logged myself out of LinkedIn? Yes, I have. Bear with me 1 second, because my computer has restarted numerous times today. I think that's the correct one. There we go. So we're now in LinkedIn. We're logged on to Dux-Soup as well. We can see my Dux-Soup icon here in the top right-hand corner, and we're talking about daily limits. So how many invites can we send out and that sort of stuff. We control all of that through our Dux-Soup options. So we go to our options here in the top right-hand corner, and under the throttling tab, and what I will do before anybody asks, I will zoom in a bit just so it's nice and clear and good for the recording. So here, this is where we control how much activity Dux-Soup carries out per day on my behalf. And what we can see here is I'm visiting profiles at a random speed. And down here, I've got a Sales Navigator account. So I'm going to allow the robot to visit up to 500 profiles a day. And I'm going to do, if I've enrolled people or if I'm sending connection requests, I'm going to allow Dux-Soup to send 30 a day. That's because I'm working 5 days a week, often more. But if I'm working 5 days a week, that's about 150. And if I can achieve then somewhere in the region of, I don't know, 20% acceptance rate, that's a pretty good number. That's 30 new connections a week, which if I'm going to follow up with them seriously, should take me a bit of time. So I can always adapt this. So if I was to run this week and running at 30 connection requests a day, and if I didn't get the pop-up appear, in other words, if I didn't get a date appear here where it says the LinkedIn limit alert, that's where Dux-Soup monitors that, and that's where it puts the date stamp if that pop-up appears. Then I could say maybe next week, okay, well, I'm gonna up it to 35 a day and then run it for another week. And then over time, I can then grow my number of connection requests that I'm running per week slightly more. Now, I see a lot of people taking a slightly different strategy on this. Some people like to mix up their days. So they'll, for example, they'll allow 20, 25, 30 connection requests a day. They'll do those in the morning, and then the rest of the day, they'll go out and visit profiles, for example. I also see some people who will say, well, you know what? I'm going to get all of my connection requests for the week out there early. So I'm going to maybe do 50 a day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Sometime around there, they might hit their limit then. And then Thursday, Friday, spend all day just visiting profiles. It's up to you. I personally would go steady. I would stay slow and steady and gradually build from there. With an aged LinkedIn account, if you've got, for example, a paid Sales Navigator account, I've seen people who are able to send upwards of 400 connection requests per week, but it takes time to get there. And you do need to be making sure you're targeting well, that you are messaging well and getting good response rate. Anything over 15 to 20%, if it's less than 15 to 20%, then you can always refine your searches better. Spending more time up front means that you get better quality leads as well. So always put that extra effort in up front. Remember, every connection request and every direct message costs a profile visit. So if I, for example, did that, because I'm only allowing myself 100 profile visits a day, I'm never going to get 30 connection requests and 150 direct messages. Direct messages, for those who are about to ask, is first degree messages and emails. So that's just something to think about there as well. But this is basically where you can control all of that activity and make sure that you are keeping your account safe. And to say, if you get the pop-up appear, that will pop up here. And then the Dux-Soup robot will snooze for the allocated number of days until it tries to send another connection request. Remember, anytime somebody accepts your connection request, that could result in effectively more virtual invite credits, if you like, being released. So it can always be worth just trying once a day, maybe, just to see if it will kick off again if you've had the pop-up appear. So all of these things give you this control. Just to touch on as well, something around this level of control, the planner here allows you to control when the robot will be sending invites or sending messages for you. So you can see here, the green times are when I'm happy for Dux-Soup to be active. If I've set it off to run against a list or I've enrolled people into a campaign, I'm happy for messages to go out at these times. I can change this just by clicking on a cell and pressing the save button there, but this gives me the extra level of control to say, yeah, you know, I only want to run it for so many hours per day, because that will also add to making sure that you've got, you know, good patterns and good consistent ways of working across the week. Remember, you don't want to have manual activities happening at the same time as automated activities too much, because that can look to LinkedIn like there's more than one person accessing your account, and that's just one of those things you don't want to risk there. If LinkedIn suspect that there's two people on the account, the first thing they do is just log you out. If it persists, then you start to get warning messages as well. But it doesn't happen that often, but it's just something worth keeping an eye on. And it's, to be honest, the best way to do it is to find certain times in the day that, for example, maybe from 8 till 11 every day, you're happy for Dux-Soup to be busy, and then maybe from 2 o'clock onwards, just as an example. That means I've then got a window in the day when I know I'm safe to be manually active on LinkedIn. It's all about keeping your account safe, not just around the limits, but also making sure that you're not putting your account at any sort of jeopardy at all there. So that's something else that's worth considering as well. The other thing I talked about was your invites, your outstanding invites. If you're sending out hundreds of messages over a period of time, that list of outstanding invites will grow. And that's the one that you can find under My Network, under invitations here, yes, and your sent invitations. So there you can find out exactly how many outstanding invites you've got. What we can do with Dux-Soup is you can turn this function on here to automatically have invites over a certain number of days withdrawn. If you have this enabled, every hour Dux-Soup will check for that, and it will withdraw anybody who is beyond your defined number of days here. Maybe that's 30 or whatever it may be. Alternatively, you can manually do that, so you can just pop in here every now and then press the check now button. That will open a new tab in your browser, and Dux-Soup will withdraw any invites accordingly. So that's something else to think about there, because if that list gets too long too quickly, that can be a little bit of a red flag to LinkedIn. We talked about visiting profiles. So if we're talking about visiting profiles, while I'm here, in case anybody wishes to, anybody who's not seen me on LinkedIn before or is new to the webinars, this is me. If you would like to send me a connection request, please feel free to do so. And please mention Dux-Soup in your connection request message, because then I know how you found me. I'm very happy to engage with anybody who's using Dux-Soup, of course. So yeah, visiting profiles. So one of the things, there's a multitude of ways of doing this, for example. But what I would do is I would go into my Dux-Soup options here, turn everything off, and then I would go and find my list and just say to Dux-Soup, go and visit them. So if we take, for example, this post here, there's 274 people who have reacted positively to this post. Maybe I want to visit them all, and I can just go to my Dux-Soup icon and press visit profiles. It's as simple as that. As I said earlier, maybe a good one is to piggyback onto your existing network. If I go to my first degree connections, for example, here, I don't know, maybe there's somebody in here who I think is particularly a key player somewhere. I'm just going to completely randomly select somebody. I can see this person's got, for example, 500 plus connections. Well, let's have a look and see who his connections are. There we go. I can see here, I'm not interested in first degree connections. I can now go to this particular person's, let's see, 140 people. Maybe these are particularly pertinent to my group. These people are connected with somebody who I may have a particular affinity to, for example. So this would be a good list to, for example, go and visit those profiles. Another alternative might be just do it from Sales Navigator, just to demonstrate as well. We'll just wait for this to load. There we go. If I go to lead filters here, for example, and if I go to a group, maybe there's a particular group. I don't know. Let's try and find. Let's go for a Raspberry Pi developers group. Maybe this is a particularly interesting group that I think, oh yeah, these are the people that I would like to reach out to. Well, there's 11,000 here, so maybe I don't want to reach out to or message all 11,000. But what I could do is, for example, say, well, I'm only interested in people who are based in the Netherlands, for example. There we go. I've now got 293 people, and maybe this would be a really good group to reach out to, or at least just go and visit. They're like-minded people. I'd make sure that my profile matched this sort of group's persona, should we say, and then hopefully I get visits back, at least visits back, and then hopefully maybe even some connection requests. So all of these things allow you to do more, even though there are LinkedIn limits in place. Absolutely finally, on the demo side of things, just very quickly, the in-mail trick that has been talked about a lot, and is something that I did an entire webinar about a few weeks back. If you want to send in-mails to people, you can do that with Dux-Soup. So here you can enable your in-mail option here and visit people. But what I would recommend you do is that you always tag them if you're going to be sending them an in-mail. Make sure that you've got this enabled to skip them if they're already tagged, so you're not trying to reach out to the same people. But then similarly, if I was wanting to message, for example, Eric with an in-mail, that would cost me a credit. Gareth, I suspect, has got an open profile. Let's have a look. Yeah, he's got an open link profile. Brilliant. So I can in-mail him without it costing me a credit. See, that's free to an open profile. Okay, so what we can do then is we can go into here and we can say skip if not an open link member. Open link is that accepting free in-mails without it costing a traditional in-mail credit. Remember, in-mail credits are a LinkedIn premium feature. So here I've got my in-mail constructed. I'm going to be tagging them as I do it, and I'm going to skip them if they're not an open link member. If I was to now go in here and say, right, visit profiles, it would skip past Eric. It would open Gareth's profile, send him an email, move on. I would tag him as well. And then Sydney, it would skip, and then Daniel, it would probably, if he's got an open profile, it would then visit him and send the message. Once you've worked your way through a list and filtered out all of the people who've in-mails, you could then say, right, down here in my search, I want to remove anybody I've already contacted, maybe already viewed. And now I know I've got a clean list of people who I've not reached out to in the past. And this can really help you to sort of strategize and build a good process and way of working. Let's go back to the slides a second. There we go. So in summary, build a complete process. Don't just think about connection requests. You've got connection requests, you've got visits, you've got in-mails, you've got first degree outreach. You can even follow profiles. You can do all sorts of other things. All of those options are available through your Dux-Soup robots, whether you've got Pro or Turbo. Monitor and measure. And while you're monitoring and measuring, checking the success or otherwise, adapt, refine, and continue to measure the impact of any changes. That's whether it's your targeting, make sure you make really good use of all the filters that are available within LinkedIn and Sales Navigator. Have a look back through our blog posts and look at the searching and filtering masterclass, because that gives you lots of ideas to really refine your searches. But also think about your messaging. We've got loads of posts about how to refine your messaging and making sure that it's engaging. And then think about, over time, the more you do on LinkedIn, the more you can do. It's as simple as that. You can't just switch it on and just put the open the tap full whack and do everything straight away. You have to start slowly. It needs to be warmed up. That's why we talk about matured accounts that have been running for some time, accounts that LinkedIn expect to be busy. You don't want these outliers, if you like, if you think of the usage graphs. One other quick thing which I must mention, we are really excited to announce that we now have an integration with a new CRM, a CRM called SharpSpring. It was released at the end of September. It's been added to our list of integrations, and you can find that if you've got Dux-Soup Turbo. SharpSpring, I believe, is part of the Constant Contact umbrella. So you can now add a Pipedrive account, you can add a HubSpot account, and you can now add a SharpSpring account as well. You can find out lots more information on our website through our knowledge base on our support pages as well. So that's something that we're really excited to be able to announce. It's a similar sort of application to the other CRMs there as well. I'm going to say questions, and while I'm saying questions and Jin's opening her microphone, in 2 weeks' time, we're going to be doing a Get Started with LinkedIn Automation and Dux-Soup Part 1, and that's going to be a 30-minute webinar starting on Tuesday the 18th at the same time. And then 2 weeks after that, of course, we have naturally got Part 2. So we're going to split it up into 2 bits. We're going to cover a few bits in the first week and a few different bits in the second week. So I hope you can join us for those. Jin, do we have any questions?
Yeah, we have a couple.
Cool.
The first one would be, any concerns about including links and invites, internal to LinkedIn or external?
Links and invites, yeah, I mean, you are only limited to 300 characters in your invitation request. So it's up to you really, whether that's an important thing to get across in your connection request. Personally, I try to put something in my connection request which is pertinent to the person and how I found them, whether that's relating to the industry in which they work or the role in which they're in, or maybe the geographical location. I try and put something in my connection request which relates to that, rather than putting URLs in my connection request. I think URLs are far more applicable and useful in outreach to existing connections or follow-up messages in your campaigns. That's my personal view. Of course, you only have those 300 characters. Use them wisely. And I personally err away from that. I try and build a connection with somebody by constructing my message to be empathetic with them and hopefully reflective of how I found them.
Thank you. Another question would be, why would you withdraw invites? What is the benefit of that?
So if you've got a long list of, so as you send out invites, of course, you have that list of outstanding invites there. And if you never withdraw an invite, you could end up with 500, 600, 700, however many outstanding invites. We have heard reports that if that list gets too long, then LinkedIn think, you've invited too many people and not enough people have responded to you, therefore we're going to limit what you can do. Also, it may be a case that you want to re-invite somebody in the future with a different methodology or a different connection request. So what we see is that, if you don't get a response from somebody within the first 2, 3, 4 weeks, it's unlikely that they're going to accept your connection request. Most people check their LinkedIn account at least once a month. Most people, I think, a bit more, but if they're not going to accept it, then it's unlikely that within that first month, if they've not accepted, they're unlikely to accept it. So it's kind of good housekeeping. And it also, you can't re-invite somebody until you've withdrawn an invite and waited 3 weeks. So if you want to re-invite somebody in the future, you need to withdraw it, wait 3 weeks, and then only then can you send another invite. So it's good housekeeping. it's good, yeah, it's good behavior really. And also, yeah, it prevents you from having too many outstanding invites. If you go from having 50 outstanding invites to suddenly having 800, then that shows you've sent out a huge number and you've not had a very good response rate if it grows too quickly.
Thank you. I'm looking at other questions. Give me 2 seconds, please.
Of course, no problems at all. Quick reminder, in 2 weeks' time, we're doing a Getting Started webinar on LinkedIn automation and Dux-Soup, where we'll be covering a lot of the basics, just reiterating some of the stuff that we do regularly. But we like to go around because things change, people's behavior changes and trends change. So it's important that we revisit some of these things sometimes, and we always have new users as well, of course. So yeah. Anything else then, Jen?
Yeah, there's one question. One person was very interested in bypassing the connection request limit. Can Dux-Soup do that?
No, unfortunately not. It's one of those things that we have discussed internally within Dux-Soup about, the possibilities of doing that. And we know that there is some software out there that claims to be able to do that. But because Dux-Soup is based upon the UI, the user interface of LinkedIn, and the environment in which LinkedIn is, we believe that the best way to keep your account safe is to mimic the human behavior on the platform and make sure that we are adhering to the LinkedIn limitations. And we encourage our users to become good LinkedIn citizens. In order to get the most out of the platform, you have to put into the platform, and just going out and using it as an environment to just spam people and just send out hundreds and hundreds of requests, that's not what LinkedIn wants to be, and they have control over their environment. And I think at Dux-Soup, we understand that, we're respectful of that, and we also want to make sure that we are using the platform in the correct way, whilst excuse my dog in the background, whilst also making sure that we're able to maximize the power of LinkedIn. One of the founding principles of Dux-Soup is that it mimics human behavior. It literally mimics the mouse clicks on the screen, therefore keeping your account as safe as possible. We will never ask you for your LinkedIn details. That's not what Dux-Soup is about. We want to make sure you maintain control over your account and are still in complete control in how many connection requests you send out per day, how many profiles you visit per day, how many messages you send out per day, etc., etc. You are in control, and the times that it runs as well. So that's very much how Dux-Soup is built.
Thank you very much. That's it from me today.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I will just mention once again, Getting Started in 2 weeks' time, part 1. And the eagerly anticipated parts 2 to come after that. That's all from me for now, and I will speak to you all again in 2 weeks. And don't forget to send me a connection request if you'd like to. Put Dux-Soup in your message. I will. Oh, one other thing: technical and booster calls. Always book these via the website or via our support team, whose email address you can now see on screen. And I'll leave it to Jin to close off the call.
Thank you, everyone, so much for joining us today. And if we did not answer any of your questions, please contact Dux-Soup support, and we will be very happy to advise you further. Thank you very much, and see you soon.